Welcome, everybody. This is Coffee and Pan Dulce, and we have a wonderful show for you today. We have Christian Cano, Dr. B, Saint Bernie with his little gloves, dressed up like the inauguration is on his to-do list, but isn't his whole day, and Bar Bacon, who we were worried about. We'll tell you that little story. It'll be fun. And we have a few other guests that might be joining us later on in the show, but Christian will introduce that as he knows their names off the top of his head, and I don't. I apologize, dear viewer. But for now, let us all introduce ourselves and our imaginary button. I am Stephen D. Fiore. I am the Libertarian Party recording secretary for Mecklenburg County, and an all-around awesome dude. Take it to you, Christian.
Oh, you caught me trying to share us here. Good morning, everyone. I'm Christian Cano, one of your co-hosts on Coffee and Panducey. Today is February I got to put my glasses back
February
on.
the 2nd,
right.
3rd.
February
No, yeah, 3rd. February the 3rd.
They'll trace. Yesterday was Groundhog Day. This is
That's
not
right.
still Groundhog Day.
That's right.
You mean the day doesn't just keep repeating?
Sorry. Today is February the 3rd. Yesterday was Groundhog Day. I think, what's his name? Punxsutawney something.
Punxsutawney Phil.
Yeah, he saw his shadow, which means the sun was out. So that means 6 extra weeks of winter. So, yay. So I don't know. Anyway.
But thanks to global warming, it won't be that cold.
Let's go to Dr. B first, and then Barbara, and then I will in the imaginary buttons. So.
That's George Bohmfalk, a retired physician. Obviously, my number one button is Medicare for all. My second is defeating systemic racism and stating to the world that indeed Black Lives Matter.
Barbara?
I think you're muted, Barbara. Barbara?
Oh.
Can't hear you. I guess she can't hear us either.
Okay.
There you go.
Hear me now?
Yes.
It's been a long week, you guys. I am here. I'm glad to be on here, but I just got a call. I am refinancing, and the appraiser wasn't supposed to be here till noon, and he's on his way. So my button is Black Lives Matter and gun safety. We just had another incident here locally with the shooting, and we need to do something about that. I'm sorry I have to leave again, but I wanted you all to see me so you know I'm still alive. And I haven't gone to South Carolina, Christian. I am still here in my house. And
yeah, go ahead, Barbara.
Ask your question.
Well, yeah, it's good to see you. Apparently, Barbara was going through some new technology, and we had missed her, and we were all like, let's do a safety check, but we didn't want to be too nosy and invade your privacy. And so we were like, how do we do it? And Stephen and I do we go by her house and and all this kind of stuff. So it's good to see you are doing well, and I hope the new technology works out for you.
This is my old phone.
Oh.
It's the only way I can see anything from you guys right at the moment, and the people at T-Mobile have no idea why. So it isn't just me.
Yes.
I bought a new phone.
Oh, okay. All right. Well.
But the new phones doesn't get Facebook at all, and a few other things I can't do. So I am technically challenged, and it's very frustrating. But now at least I can Zoom with a few people.
Yeah.
My Facebook working on this phone again, and I guess I'm going to be dueling telephones for a while. I have no idea. So maybe by next week I'll have it all figured out. I don't know. I'm not going to hold my breath.
Well,
hey, Barbara, do a technology experiment for me. Turn your camera horizontal and see if it makes you go horizontal. Yeah. Okay. There you go. Okay, that's better. We can see you spread out better. Yeah. Well, okay. Sometimes you see people and they end up like this, but this corrected your image, so you're great. All right.
Here.
Hey, Barbara, I don't want to scare you, but T-Mobile, they merged with Sprint, right?
Yep.
So you're going to have to get a new SIM card, because we're going through that here at this house, where we all have Sprint phones, and we have to get these new SIM cards to go on. It's really complicated. So, all right. So
I already did that, and they thought that would fix the problem, and it did not. But my old phone, this phone, wasn't compatible with T-Mobile.
Yeah. Well,
Art recommended T-Mobile, so now he feels terrible.
Apple nada más. Just go with Apple and everything seems to work. I mean, they have certain things that drive you crazy, but most things are kind of seamless. So
Well, Barbara,
I'm a happy Apple person.
yes. Well, Barbara, it's good to have you back, and
Yep.
I'm so glad that you're safe and
I'll
and
be
all
back
that.
full time next week. I just got to
Good.
get this thing out of the way, and I got my first vaccine on Saturday, so now I'm not going back to the T-Mobile store until after I get my second one. I am not doing that. So
Okay. All right. Well, we are going to talk very briefly about vaccines, but today's topic, once again, I'm Christian Conde, one of your co-hosts, along with Stephen and Mama Ruth, who we hope Mama Ruth will be joining us today. She's doing a lot of transporting family members back and forth to college and schools and all this wonderful stuff. I do want to say that we no longer have Baby Trump Pinata visiting us. Those days are over. So our newest guest, and we'll
The
see
end of a glorious era.
our newest guest is going to be St. Bernie. You can see St. Bernie there. He's actually got my old grandmother's rosary behind him. So I don't know if that's sacrilegious or something, but anyway, we want to welcome St. Bernie. That's actually something that I purchased from a lady, a small business owner here, and she actually makes those. So if you want one, I can hook you up, and they're really, really neat looking. So listen, today's topic. Oh, before we do today's topic, Stephen, y'all forgot.
Oh, yeah.
We want
A
to
salute to Manolo's Bakery.
Yes, let's everyone salute to Coffee and Pandusi. We want to salute to our neighbors. Also, we want to thank our Pandusi sponsor, Manolo's Bakery on Central Avenue. It is a small business, immigrant owned. Everything is made by the loving hands of immigrant hands. And
Is he
Manolo,
better?
I'm sorry,
Is he
ma'am.
better?
Yes, I was going to say that. Manolo actually was in isolation as well. He has recovered from COVID-19, and I saw him yesterday because technically the county released me yesterday from isolation. So I ran out safely, of course,
No.
and I was able to see Manolo, and he's got a new haircut. I was like, oh man, you've really been out. I need a haircut. So we'll talk about that. All right. So listen, today we are going to be talking about a very important topic that we've been touching base with. We hope Dr. Gina Navarrete will be joining us. She's one of our neighbors, and her son is a student at Myers Park High School, I believe. And Governor Cooper yesterday gave some guidance along with the superintendent of schools, I believe, in North Carolina. And he is recommending that we reopen schools. And so we want to talk about that topic. We've been talking about that for a while. I know Dr. B gave us some input about I don't know if you remember, Dr. B, I think it was in the summer, we talked about the New York experiment. And I know Stephen has been talking about some things and so forth. So we want to talk about today's topic, and I really just named it that way because I knew it would get a lot of people's attention. Today's topic is, will reopen schools kill Latinx kids? So I think we can safely say no, it won't kill them. We probably should answer that first, right? Is that what everyone?
It might kill their spirits a little bit. I know when I was a young man, going to school was not top of my priority list.
Well, so apparently, if I understand this
and
correctly,
kids, if you don't go to school, you end up like me. So you don't want to be that.
You're a nice guy. Dr. B, we'll kind of get your input on this. I understand that what happened was the CDC released some type of study, and I don't know if it was January or early January. And then Governor Cooper and Dr. Cohen, they wanted to evaluate the study before they made some guidance, and they gave the guidance yesterday. And I've got the CDC study up, and it's long, and also got kind of an NPR brief thing about it as well. But I think that if I'm correctly, that the CDC was basically saying that the research and stuff doesn't necessarily show that people who are getting COVID are getting it from A, in school, and B, it's not necessarily being transmitted from student to teacher, teacher to student, like I think some people were concerned about. So I don't know if Dr. B, you want to kind of, tell us what you know about that, or how we want to start this conversation, because I'll tell you what I feel.
Yeah. Okay.
Go ahead.
Yeah, there's several things, and I'll start out by saying that one of our sons in a school system in Colorado is now the principal of their remote learning school, which has like, 300-400 students in it compared to like, several thousand in the whole district. So he's been intimately involved in this out in Colorado. And so I learned a tremendous amount from him. And probably the most important thing I've learned from him and others is that I think, if I get the number correct, there are like 13,000 school districts in the United States. So therefore we have 13,000 unique situations. And so the idea that a state or a federal or whatever can kind of say, okay, everybody do this, is just ridiculous, because it does have to be tailored to that specific school circumstance. And the other thing I really learned from my son is that you can have all the data you want about the risks and how it's transmitted and whatnot. But if your school system says, if the governor or whoever tells your school system to go back to in-person, in-class teaching, well, then you have to suddenly kind of come up with the teachers and the bus drivers and the cafeteria workers and the janitors. And a lot of them are sick, or a lot of them have existing conditions that make it too risky for them to come back. So a lot of times it's not that they don't want to bring the kids back and don't think it's safe to, but from a very practical basis of the support systems and the teachers, they just can't do it. So it becomes, again, like most big problems in life, it's more complicated than it might seem. And you can't just kind of take a report from the CDC and say, okay, let's suddenly kind of encourage people to go back to school. And then I think it's even worse when it becomes a political issue. There's this bill that the Republicans are putting forth in the state assembly to, kind of force the schools to open. Well, please, you just can't force a school to open if it practically kind of can't. The other thing that came up in our son's school's situation is, you have all these folks with working parents, with families with working parents, and it's just a huge burden for them to kind of have the children at home. And then you also, on the flip side, you have a bunch of families with privileged parents who, have kind of conveniently used the schools as a babysitting service. And so they're kind of sitting there ranting and raving, we need to get the kids back in school, for very selfish reasons. So all of these things have to be kind of factored in, I think, at each specific school district, and try to make the best decision for that particular school. So it's very, very complicated. We haven't even mentioned the teachers' unions. Right. And, a lot of times people say, well, they're arguing for something other than, health and welfare and trying to get their benefits up, and so it's just really complicated. And so the bottom line is, I would follow the advice of Mandy Cohen here in North Carolina. I think she's extremely bright and extremely fair, and I think she's considers all of these different aspects. And I think Governor Cooper is largely, in concert with her. And so when he's encouraging the schools to start, that's not mandating him to. Mm-hmm. So that's, I think, the long and short of it. Everybody talks about, our kids are suffering because they're not getting the right education. And it's like, the first issue here since day one should be health. This is a public health problem. It's not an economic problem. It's not primarily an economic problem. It's not primarily an education problem. Let's take care of the health problem, and these other things will kind of take care of themselves. So if we can focus on health and make that the primary consideration, then educating the kids and the economy will follow in suit. So that's the long of it. I wish I had a short of it.
That was a good explanation. Hey, Stephen, before you jump in, I forgot to do something we were supposed to do at the beginning of the show. And I apologize, y'all. I just got my new contacts, and I'm trying to adjust with being able to read and do the contact thing. And I probably should just keep the glasses on. I did want to just read something because it's kind of important to our story, but we are celebrating Black History Month all across America. And Angela Ambrose, who is a community leader here in Charlotte, very active in all aspects of our community, she posted this yesterday about Black History Month and with COVID-19. And she posted this story about the concept of inoculation to this country. And her story talked about inoculation was introduced to America by a slave. His name was Onesimus, and I apologize if I'm not pronouncing that right, but he was assumed to be born in Africa in the late 17th century, before eventually landed in Boston, one of the 1,000 people of African descent living in the Massachusetts colony. He was a gift to a Puritan church minister, Cotton Mather, from his congregation in 1706. So apparently the way the story is that he told this person about extracting material from infected people that they had done in Africa. And you could deliberately introduce smallpox to the healthy individual, making them immune. And apparently that is how the idea of inoculation started in America. And I thought it was kind of important to kind of share that, because that was interesting, because, Black History Month and how these things got started and so forth. And also I did want to say that I am, and like most people, I hope, I'm not sure, and we can talk about this later, I'm actually double masking now. So we actually have these disposable masks that we use, and then we put the other mask over it. And I know Stephen really didn't like that idea when we talked about it last week or the week before, but it's really simple to do. This one is like a dryer sheet. It catches the particles, and every other day you can throw it away. And this one you just wash periodically. So I just thought I'd share that with you. So with all that said, let's go to Stephen. Stephen, tell us, what do you think about schools reopening and all that wonderful stuff?
Oh yeah, so I mean, it's a complicated issue, and like Dr. B was saying, there is, the system is very complicated. Not every place and every part of the country is the same, and so you need tailored solutions. I'm always more of an advocate of localism, and so I'm a big fan of having strong county and city leadership on this, which was one of the reasons why people probably should pay attention to who is in their school board and the kind of decisions that are coming out of public school boards, because not every county has, in my opinion, a competent school board to handle this reopening. And even though North Carolina is, 100 counties and much smaller than, this, the rest of the United States, it's still 100 counties, 100 different situations, many different, thousands of different communities, and it's a lot for, any bureaucracy to handle. Even in Raleigh, they can only do so much, and someone's going to get overlooked. But if you are in your community and looking at your neighbors around you, it's hard to overlook that. And so here in Mecklenburg County, being part of the decision process, reaching out to county commissioners, reaching out to city council, maybe not city council, but reaching out to school board members, and being involved, seeing what they say, offering suggestions, paying attention to the decisions that are coming out. That's an important piece, because here's the thing, when the school system was increasingly federalized in the 70s, one of the promises that was made to the people by signing on to this would be that you wouldn't have to worry about taking care of your kids' education. There was going to be a public option for that, which was the public school system. And a lot of people depend on it. There are lots of folks who go to parochial schools or private schools or, Montessori's and things like this. And those are fantastic options that I fully support. North Carolina is really good about making it easy to homeschool, but not all families are in a position to be able to take advantage of all those different choices. And so they kind of have to rely on public schools. And right now, it's just the system is very clumsy in being able to adapt to a new system. In many places in North Carolina, right? In Mecklenburg County, if you live in poorer communities, maybe you don't have good internet access. Maybe you don't have access to the local library, right? So how do you do remote learning if you're a poor family? You don't have multiple computing devices. Maybe you don't have multiple rooms that it's easy for you to have a separated space for your kid to learn so they can concentrate. And there are probably creative solutions to be able to work around that. and being more involved and bringing up those ideas about what works in different communities is probably the best way for local folks and local communities to be able to make the best choices. But the folks in the school boards, I mean, they don't know if they don't hear from you. And so that's why it's very important to be engaged, to reach out, and to make sure that you have as many options as possible to choose the best situation that you think fits your family. You know, fortunately, and I'm going to put it in the live in the comments. North Carolina's North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services has a good page on where to get a vaccine. So as vaccines become more available, right, the danger and risk and anxiety around COVID will be mollified a little bit. And you know, as more come online, like as more vaccines become available, people from like the oldest group, the most at risk group, it'll begin to expand out so that more people have an opportunity to get vaccinated if they want. And once you reach that critical mass, it's reasonably safe to conduct yourself in normal life. And so that's a good thing. We are coming around the bend on that point. And to DHHS's credit, as much as that pains me to say it, they're doing a fairly good job of getting that information out there, not only to just you know, like middle class folks, but they even have a Spanish language page. And I know this show is specifically tailored toward the Latinx, Latino, and Latina community. So that will be something that you can do if, like, say, English is your second language and you prefer to read in Spanish. You know, it's actually pretty good grammar, which is always the case for a government website.
Hey, Stephen, so I don't mean to interrupt you, but I want to kind of touch base on what you said earlier, because we've talked about this, and I'd be curious to hear what Dr. B has to say. And I really wish Dr. Gina Navarrete was on here, because I know she has been one of the leaders in our community pushing for making sure that people have the option for virtual learning and those type of things. And one of the things I heard when I was listening to the school board meetings, and I hear this a lot, and not from you, but just from individuals who are concerned about our neighbors of color, our working poor, and those kind of things. And I'm wondering if we underestimate our school board's members' relationship with those communities, because I'm thinking a lot of the communities, especially Latinx communities, working class communities, you know, they're just doing what they have to do. And so I don't necessarily know that they are thinking about this the same way we are. They just tell me what we need to do, we'll make it work. You know, that's more working class people. They kind of have that, I believe, you know, you're not in school this week. Okay, we just got to do what we got to do, you know, and they just make it work. And I do know that the school board members, and I know that when they were voting on this in December, then in January, I knew they were going to vote for virtual learning, because a lot of them have really good relationships with their communities, with the neighbors of color, Black and brown communities. And they were telling them, whatever you want to do, you know, we'll do whatever. It seemed to me to be more of the privileged South Charlotte individuals that were saying, we've got to reopen these schools. And then you hear them say, which is, I find interesting, and we need to do it for the Black and brown poor people. So they were like they were going to be the champions, you know, for the neighbors of color, as if though our school board members weren't asking those individuals already. And so I knew those votes were already going to be, you know, for virtual learning, because what I was hearing from the community too was, whatever they tell us to do, we'll do it. We'll just make it work, you know. And of course, there's always going to be those students who could benefit, you know, from virtual learning, whatever. But I'm curious if you think that same way, that most working class families, they don't really have the ability like we do to kind of like debate those topics. They just say, what, you're not going to school? It's snowing next week, you're not going to school? All right, we just got to do it. Yeah, I don't know. Does anybody?
No, well, I mean, so I'm a big fan of virtual learning. I'm a big fan of options. I'm a big fan of choices, and whatever you want to do, I mean, you should be able to do it. Pod learning, I don't know if that's done as much here as it is out in the, like, say, the Midwest, right? Where people will meet, like little community groups will meet in like a park or like a parking lot or something, you know. I'm a big fan of out of the box thinking. So there are lots of folks, lots of families who want they want schools. They want to send their
Yeah.
kid to a classroom environment, right? And they have their own reasons, and I'm not going to judge them on
Yeah.
those reasons.
Yeah.
Well, why not do it like if the weather's nice? Why not learn outside? Right? Why
Yeah.
not go to a park? Why not go to a gazebo? There are so many different options, and it wouldn't work for
Yeah.
everybody. But I'm not a one size fits all kind of
Yeah,
guy.
no,
Like we could
I
have more
get that.
community based
Yeah.
options, and people can just choose what method works best. Some folks, maybe online learning is like the thing that they really get,
Yeah.
right? And some folks, on like looking at a computer screen, it's torture. They just can't,
Yeah.
like, for whatever reason, it's just there's this brick wall that
Yeah.
they just keep hitting, and they can't get through it, you know. And some families are really worried about COVID, and that's cool. Let's make sure that they don't feel bad for being worried. Others are not so much, right?
Yeah.
And
But-
I'm very much in favor of giving as many options to families as possible and letting them decide, because in my opinion, I don't know what's best for them,
Yeah.
but they do.
Yeah. Well, let me, Dr. B, I don't know if you want to jump in on that. I mean, I kind of just made a statement. It wasn't really a question, but I mean, I did.
You did make a good point though about the class
Yeah.
dynamic, right?
Yeah.
And so there are a lot of folks who so I'm from the working class,
Yeah.
right? And there are a lot of folks who
That's
are
why I
in
thought
like
you agree with me.
yeah. So there are a lot of folks from the working class, and for a while I actually worked at South Park Mall, and I was rubbing shoulders with these upper class bourgeois type folks. And I'm not gonna, and that's cool. I'm jealous because I wish I were in that, right? I wish I was living in the South Park area, being able to.
You were watching Dr. B at the mall, walking in the.
Yeah,
so-
it's a nice mall. It was a fine place to work. But anyways, but there's this idea that, oh, the poors can't do stuff, and that's why they're poor. It's like, that's not really the case. Being poor means you just don't have money. It doesn't mean
Yeah.
you're stupid, right? And there's a lot of stuff that happens in this country that makes it more difficult for folks maybe at the bottom of the economic ladder to climb up, right? And I'm a big fan of making it as easy as possible to climb that
Yeah.
ladder. But there's a big entrepreneurial kind of like energy in poor communities. There's lots of innovation, lots of out of the box thinking. These folks are not dumb, right? They can do whatever, right? It's just that, is the infrastructure there to facilitate
Yep.
the natural drive to improve one's lot? And in some cases it's just not there. And that's something we can work on. But as it pertains to schools, the schools in the poor areas of our city are least able to adapt to the new situation, because they have the least amount of funding. Because for some reason we thought it was a great idea in this country to tie school funding to property taxes, which means wealthy areas get awesome schools and poor areas get crappy schools.
Yeah.
And we know that access to quality education is a big indicator of whether or not you're able to climb up that economic ladder. I don't know why we do that in this country, but we do. So it is what it is.
Well, it's kind of along the same lines as why we tie healthcare to employment, which we're finding out right now isn't all that such a great idea. So if you want to give people more opportunity to innovate and express those great ideas, it's like let them leave their current job and go out and do something without having to worry about health insurance. But that's on Medicare for All, which is another topic.
Well,
But it always seems to pop up, isn't it? It always
Or
just
breaking
kinda
up
seems to pop up.
the healthcare monopolies, like CON laws and stuff. But
Sure.
those two can go together.
That's it. But Dr. B does make a good point, because it does. I know that I can go by my experience here, and when I grew up, we didn't have a primary care physician. We had a local doctor that if something happened, we would go see him, and it was it's like $25, or I can't remember at that time. But if you are a family that has health insurance and has access to virtual doctors, and I can send my kid to Old Providence Elementary School, and if they get a cold or flu, I can either take care of them or I can take them to the doctor. If you're from a family that doesn't have that ability, and $40 is a lot of money to go see a doctor or to get prescriptions, or it makes an impact. I mean, I remember growing up, $40 was, we fed a family of 5 for $40 a week. I mean, that's what we spent on groceries, or maybe $50. Now it's like $100 a week just for 2 people here. So that's a lot of money for a lot of people. So it does make a difference with people who have health care and people who don't. And I do, if we had a Medicare for all type of system, this kind of would be a no-brainer, I think, because we would be saying, all right, we know that if something happens to those individuals, they have good care at home. They're not going to be forced to go back to school being sick or be forced to be around their family members, whatever. I don't know. That does make a difference. And I'm sure that was in the minds of some of the Charlotte school board members. I know a couple of them. I haven't talked with them directly, but I know them. And I know they were thinking about these kind of things. Those are the things that Dr. Gina was kind of educating people on. It's not everyone has the abilities that some of us have. And so anyway, but I want to get back to like, will opening schools kill kids? What I've heard from y'all was, I know none of y'all have said it will, but what I'm hearing is it really just depends on the school district. I mean, if we should reopen them or we shouldn't. I mean, is that what I'm hearing?
I think it comes down to the school district's circumstances. As to your original question, does sending kids back to school kill them? I think no. And what you cited early on, I believe is turning out to be correct, that there's not so much transmission from kid to kid or kid to student to teacher or vice versa in the schools, but it's people get it out in the community or in their homes where they have multifamily housing and things. So it's transmitted out in the community, and then a kid can bring it to school. But so far, transmission within the school doesn't seem to be the big problem. So, for what that's worth.
Yeah, and I'll say if I had my way, if I was king of Charlotte or king of Mecklenburg, I would make sure that schools have an option to do in-person learning for families and students who want to do that, and any other and every other option for families who are maybe a little anxious about that. There's no reason why you have to have a one-size-fits-all, right? If the school reopens, why that shouldn't mean that suddenly you take away online learning, virtual learning, every other option that's out there. That's just not how I think it should work. And so, some people want to do in-person instruction. Great. Some people will want to do something else. Why not facilitate that? I'm a big fan of the government being in the position to facilitate community needs, and the community determines what they need, not the other way around.
Yeah. What I get from my son is that they're in their school district out in Colorado, that they all agree that if we can get the most kids back to school in person, that would overall, all things being equal, be preferable. So there's kind of this kind of steady push. But like you say, there's some kids for whom that just kind of doesn't work out. And so, that should be an option. And I think it's going to be interesting to see, God willing, we get past this one of these days, just like telemedicine and telehealth. I think that's going to become a real thing, whereas it hadn't been up to now because of insurance companies. But there's a lot of advantage to telehealth, and I think there's a lot of advantage to certain people with certain circumstances to remote learning. So it's going to be interesting to kind of see what persists after this in many things at work. I mean,
I got to say,
I don't own a big office building that I'm counting on rent for right now.
Oh yeah, I know, right?
Yeah, that's going to be a big change, but most people probably will return to the office, and most people will return to the schools, and most people will continue to see their doctors in person. But these little modalities, I think, are going to be very, very valuable going forward as permanent components of the bigger system.
Yeah, I agree. I'm a big fan of the telehealth thing, the telemedicine. I think it's very interesting that as soon as the government said, we're going to remove the restrictions on this stuff, suddenly it opened up and became an option that was affordable and available to so many people. It's almost like the government causes problems too. So when they got out of the way, more options opened up. So I thought that was kind of cool.
Just keep in mind that, like almost every other kind of thing, telehealth can be profoundly abused. You can kind of have some abusive doctor who has 500 patients on at once, and he's charging the government for each one of them, and so it requires oversight and regulation, unfortunately, because not everybody is an angel. But I think with proper oversight and regulations, and I know you hate the term regulations,
it depends on the regulations. Regulation could be like the kosher stamp, for example.
I have two questions. One for you, Stephen, and one for Dr. B. And like I said, once again, we're gonna have Dr. Gina Navarrete on the show because she's,
Yeah, I can't wait
you know,
to hear her
yeah,
perspective.
I mean, she's really been following, and I've tried to follow the CMS meetings as much as I can. There's only so many Zoom calls you can do a night every week.
You
But
can't do infinite?
one of the things I found interesting is I can understand the frustration from people who want to reopen schools, and the ladies that I've seen on television saying, you know, little Cody is upset because he can't see his kids, and he's in kindergarten. And the one I saw on WCNC that Hunter Sines did, which our Lexi, what's her name, did, and it was just the most outrageous story. It was like this little boy, a 5-year-old kindergartner, his head was on the ground saying his life is ruined because he can't see his kids. And I was like, I can't believe you're doing this story when people are like dying of COVID-19, and doesn't every 5-year-old kid say, my life is ruined because I can't see my friends? So I thought that was a crazy story. But my point is, I can understand the frustration because the CMS school board has had to vote like every other week or every month, virtual learning, this and so forth. So there hasn't, in a way, it would have benefited everyone if they had just said, you know what, we're not going back till April 1st. If we can go back earlier, we'll go back earlier. Otherwise, everyone just let's do April 1st or something. But they kept saying, we're going to delay it 3 weeks. We're going to delay it 3 weeks. And so when you do that, it gets people, they get frustrated. And in many ways, I almost blame the system of how CMS schools work, where the school board tends to micromanage the superintendent, and then superintendent, who is very, very highly paid, doesn't really want to make any tough decisions because he allows the school board to micromanage him. And I say this because every time we have these meetings, you hear this outcry from school teachers saying, this isn't safe, you know, and so forth. And I keep thinking to myself, if this were Bank of America, and they were talking about, the CEO was talking about in the school board or the Bank of America board meeting, the CEO was talking about bringing tellers back into the school. The board would be, and then you hear people up at the podium that a tellers is saying, it's not safe for us, is this is. As a board member, I would say, CEO or school or superintendent, have you not been talking to these people before we actually had this meeting? And it's almost disappointing because what that means is the superintendent doesn't have the pulse of the teachers. He's not demanding the principals have weekly meetings with teachers and say, tell me what you think. How's it going? So that way the superintendent can then say, listen, we've met with the teachers. We've done this. But it's obvious they're not meeting with them because right before every vote, there's this outcry from teachers saying no one's listening to us. So I'm curious, at what point do we hold the school board accountable for trying to micromanage the superintendent? And also, what do we hold the superintendent accountable for letting the school board do it? Because it's easier for him just to say, whatever you want to do, I'll do. You know, I don't know. I mean, does anybody get that sense, or have you been following it that closely?
I haven't, yeah.
Well,
Okay.
I'll say the time to hold the school board accountable is in November.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, that's just is what it is. And you know, talking about how the board manages the superintendent. I know the city of Charlotte doesn't have anything to do with schools, not really, but the city of Charlotte operates on a council manager system, and I'm a fan of that system where the city council members who are elected make policy, and then they give that policy to the city manager, who is a professional and highly paid and an expert on these things, and his staff, and then they run with it and make it happen. You know, I see no reason why the school board should micromanage, why the school board members should have their little fiefdoms, should make policy, give it to the superintendent, and even if you want to decentralize it further and give principals themselves broad leeway to operate their schools in the way they see fit, that's probably the better system. Because remember, you know, schools are like a community hub, right? And so you would hope that the principal and the vice principals and then the parent teacher associations, you know, they have the pulse of the community, so they really know how to do stuff, right? And so at least with schools, I'd rather see more of a bottom up model, where the most important person in your school district is, you know, your principal, and then you go, and then there's some varying degrees of control and oversight from levels above. But yeah, this micromanaging thing, this central controlled system that CMS likes to engage in, it's bulky, it's top heavy, it's inefficient, and it doesn't really serve the customer as
Okay,
well
so
as
that-
it could, in
so
my
that was
opinion.
so that was one question. And
Oh
Dr.
boy,
B,
there's another one.
yeah, the second question is, do you think we are now going to realize in schools the need for nurses, for healthcare professionals? Back in the day, you had a nurse at every school. I remember going to the nurse and so forth.
They still don't have that?
I know it's like one nurse for so many schools. I wish we had Dr. Gina or someone who knows that. I don't know if Dr. B knows that, but I wish if they do open schools that we put healthcare professionals in there, not just healthcare professionals, but mental health professionals, to talk to the students about, how do you feel being back and so forth. And speaking of the devil, we've got someone joining us who I think we all want to hear from. But Dr. B, I mean, would you agree that it's important to get healthcare professionals back in? I don't know. Would you agree? Would you not agree?
Yeah, no. We speak of ideal situations, and yeah, it'd be ideal to kind of have competent, caring, health professionals in the schools. I don't know if they are sharing school nurses right now. Maybe they will be. Maybe they very well are. Maybe that reflects the fact that you don't need one in every single little school with only 75 students or something. So it becomes an economic thing. And in Stephen's point about everything kind of being bottom driven, that assumes that at these disparate bottom levels, you have competent leadership, and that gets down to county health departments. I think we have a superb director of our county health department here. But a lot of counties don't. And a lot of counties don't have the competence, the finances, the infrastructure to do the things like they should. And I think the same thing goes for school boards. So, before you just kind of say universally everything should be, bottom up driven, or there shouldn't be like top down direction from a central authority or something, I think there kind of has to be a balance, because you don't always have that competence and capability at these lower levels. So welcome, Dr. Navarrete. Whose microphone
Hey,
was off.
George,
There
how
she
are
is.
you?
Hey, how you doing? Great.
Thanks.
Long time no
Thanks for
see.
having me.
Well, welcome, Dr. Gina. We have been asking all these kind of questions, and after every question, I kept saying, I wish Dr. Gina was on.
I'm
Yeah,
so
we are
sorry.
very happy to have you.
Yes, I'm so sorry I'm late. I was, running from a meeting. But
Well,
catch me up real quick.
Yeah,
Sorry.
so let me give you the quick rundown. Pan Dulce viewers, please welcome Dr. Gina Navarrete. Did I say that name right?
Navarrete, yeah.
Navarrete?
Close enough, yeah.
All right, close
You
enough.
have to do the roll.
The gringo
Exactly.
tongue is not as good. I can't do the rolling R as well. Oh well, forgive me, please.
No
So
problem.
we are
I've been called worse.
Gotcha.
Haven't we all?
So would you introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about what you do, and then we're talking about schools and reopening and the risk to children, specifically to Hispanic youth, as that's the main thrust of the show. And then we usually say, do you have an imaginary button? An imaginary button would be a button that is for a cause that you believe in. For me, like I say, it's anti-war. For Dr. B, it's Medicare for all, Black Lives Matter. For Christian, it's, I don't know, make America socialist again. I don't know, some joking thing. I'm kidding, of course. But if you would, introduce yourself to the audience and tell us a little bit about your perspective on this, and then we'll take it away from there.
So I am a neuropsychologist by training. Since I moved to Charlotte, I'm not practicing, but I teach now at Queen's University. And I am president of the Charlotte Women's March, Women's Movement, formerly known as Charlotte Women's March. I'm co-president. And so I've been involved quite a bit since I moved to Charlotte with activism and kind of community outreach. So most of my practice was seeing, when I was in practice, most of my practice was seeing traumatic head injuries, but I also saw, a fair amount of, psychiatric cases, psych cases, and from, workman's comp, PTSD to, just garden variety anxiety and depression. And I have seen children. I do not specialize. I'm not a pediatric neuropsychologist, but I have seen my fair share of children. So I have very strong opinions about, kids going back in school and all the studies that have come out.
Yeah,
Dr.
and we would like to hear some of your opinions on that matter, because between the Dr. B, Christian, myself, we're just everyday average folk who aren't really like in the mix on this as much. We don't have the expert opinions. We're just talking heads. So we'd like to get the viewpoint of someone who is, as it were, in the mix.
So I can tell you what the American Academy of Pediatrics said, but let's start there, because it seems like some of the members on school board or for CMS school board seem to cherry pick. And so they will basically quote the first part of the statement, but will ignore the second. So a lot of pediatricians, and including the American Academy of Pediatrics, have says that the best place for children is to go back to school, is to be in schools. That is the safest place, and from a physical and for many, and it's also for emotional well-being of the child and development, is for kids to go back to school when it is safe, when the community deems that it is safe. I think that we keep talking about children going back to school as if that is going to resolve all the kids' anxiety and depression. And my point is, we are in the middle of a pandemic. So if the children go back to school right now and put teachers' lives at risk, and I believe, trust me, I believe 100% the best place for kids is in school when it is safe. And I think that what we should have been doing is we should have been focusing 100% on making sure that businesses were open and that kids went back to school. So the best way to do that is to stop the spread, and everybody has to do whatever we can do to stop the spread, not go out, not dine in restaurants, not to have big, gatherings, or even get together with people in your home, even if it's another family, or go away with people, unless you're really taking a lot of precautions. So I think one of the things that we ignore is that some of these kids, when they go back to school, and some of the teachers that are already in school with some of the little ones will tell you, school is not the same. It's not the same because the kids can't play together. They can't, be gathering. They all have to wear masks, which is appropriate because we have to do that. And so it is not like going back to school like normal. So we keep talking about, well, the kids' welfare will be so much better and that everything will go back to normal. And my point is, no, we're in the middle of the pandemic. Things are not going back to normal. The kids sense the parents' anxiety and level of depression from businesses going under, people not having enough food to eat at night, kids going to bed hungry, parents being concerned that they're losing their jobs or that they have lost their jobs. How do you pay the bills? How do you keep a home, a roof over their heads? All these things kids sense. So anyway, so now 1 out of 4 children go to bed hungry every night. These are things that are happening, and we know they've been there, but obviously the pandemic has made things much worse. And I wish the parents that are suing CMS for not opening up in-person learning immediately and spending, $1,000 making signs to make sure that, to voice our opinions about schools being back up, spend some time promoting, kind of healthy habits, promoting, kind of reducing the spread of the virus.
So Dr. Gina, a question, and I don't know if anyone else has another question, or Dr. B, if you have any questions, but Dr. Gina, we were talking about this, and we were talking about Governor Cooper's guidance, that he, kind of like everyone else, we'd like to get schools back open. Do you feel that we are, because I know you've been following CMS meetings and you're kind of have the pulse of the school board, their thoughts, and also the community, not those that we see on television, like we talked about earlier, that says Cody is upset because he can't see his friends, more of the working, the working class people who are doing what they need to do, so to speak. Do you think at this moment it's safe to reopen schools, or what's your thoughts? Should it be a mixture? Should we set a date, like maybe, I joked about, not joke, but April 1st or, something? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think that we need to look to to other countries for this. Europe is ahead of us in terms of the pandemic, right? And somehow we don't seem to be looking at them too much. And I don't understand that.
In what way are they ahead of us? Like, what's the metric?
Meaning they had the pandemic before we did, right? They had the virus. They were going, we could see, Italy was sending us messages going, please look at us, look at our hospitals, see what is coming, prepare yourselves, make sure you start shutting down now, because we didn't listen, we didn't think about it, and look what's happening now. Doctors were begging on social media to saying the US needs to be aware of what's happening here because it's going your way. And so I'm not saying I'm saying they're ahead in that they got the virus before we did, right? And they've been going through these, many of these things way before we did. So we've had a window as to what it may look like. That's my point.
So right now with CMS, what do you think? Because I know they're going to vote, next week or so? Is that?
Yeah, I think so. But this is the issue. The issue is, I'm not an epidemiologist. I'm not so I would give you my personal opinion. My personal opinion is we're at 10% positivity rate. The recommendation by many has been 5% or lower. So why is this a discussion? We're not at 5% or lower. Now, do I think some kids, so what did countries like France, what did they do in Paris? In Paris, what they did is they opened up the schools, but only to the little ones, right? And they opened up the schools and they sent out a letter to the parents to say, please only let us know who is bringing back their children. But please, those of you who can keep your children at home and they can continue with remote learning, let us know, because we're only trying to bring back 25% of the kids. So they brought back 25% of the kids. And, because people were aware of the community problems, many people kept their kids home, and 25% said, I cannot go to work unless I'm an essential worker. So I have to go to work. I don't have anybody to take care of my child. So I'm sending my child. So what they did is they did what CMS is doing now with with some of the little ones. And, the school was very different. And now what is Europe doing? They're closing back down again, because they're closing the schools back down because the new strain of the virus is, much more spreadable. So we just got to keep everybody in mind. And what I tell people is like, look, my kid is in high school. This is his senior year. He's not able to do, extracurricular activities that he used to do. He was in marching band. Myers Park Marching Band is amazing band that always wins, and the kids love it. My son is, he's anxious, he's depressed, wasn't able to go and see universities in person. A lot of things. So for my kid, I would love for him to go back to school, but I cannot just think of my child. I have to think of the community at large as well.
So what I'm hearing from you, I don't know if anybody else wants to jump in, what I'm hearing from you is you don't believe that currently that it's really safe to kind of reopen. And is that what I'm hearing, or?
Absolutely. I think that we know that AC filtration is important.
Yeah.
There's a lot of schools here in Charlotte and in Mecklenburg County that are old, that have poor filtration systems. Now, I've been told that they have put new filtration systems and they've been inspected, but some of them need new AC systems, period, right? So we need to figure out how to go back. I think only a small percentage should go back and see how that works, see if that spreads. And if it doesn't, if there's no huge spread, then you bring back a few more kids.
Yeah.
But so yes, I right now at 10%, I think most epidemiologists will tell you that 10% is too high.
Well, we're running close to out of time here, and I wish we'd had more time with you. And if you want to stay over, you're welcome to. But I do value everyone's time. The title of the show, it was, like I said before, it was to get everyone's attention. But it's will reopen schools kill Latinx kids? I don't necessarily know, and I think we kind of agreed it wouldn't actually kill the kids. And I don't mean to be flippant or jokingly about that, but the concern is with a lot of working class families, immigrant families, where you have more of families living together. You have the mom, the meemaws, and the aunts and the uncles and so forth living in more groups. That the child, I don't know, is that a concern that from individuals where?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. The fact is that COVID spreads at a rapid rate in concentrated, clusters of concentrated poverty. And a lot of our Latinx community, and particularly immigrants, are in that group. And so, yes, absolutely. You're going to have, and you live in, tighter communities, smaller spaces. There's more kind of intergenerational, communing kind of thing. So yeah, I think that what's going to happen is that the kids are going to bring it home. And again, I really don't know if the research, and I think maybe George could speak about this, but because I know there's a lot of research saying that the kids don't spread it as much, but I think partly is because they don't carry as big of a viral load. But if you have the older kids or the bigger kids going to school, they may have a bigger viral load. So, and this is what I tell people. As a neuropsychologist, I can tell you that my kid may not die, okay? My kid may not have severe symptoms, but we know this is a vascular disease, right? Part of this is this virus attacks the vascular system. I don't know, and I don't want to put things out there that scares people, but I personally, so just for me personally, I don't know what this is going to do to a kid's brain. So when I tell people, maybe your kid wasn't really, really sick, but so my kid had COVID. He got COVID. We have let him work at a place where he does the dishes at a restaurant, local restaurant where he does the dishes, and he really doesn't come in contact with many people. So he wears a mask, he goes, and my husband and I decided, let's let him do that. They're not sitting people indoors. Anyway, all these things. So, but he ended up getting COVID. He was sick for about 3 weeks with a very bad flu-like symptoms. Well, he's fine now, but I don't know what this is going to do to him long-term. So I'm hoping George can comment about that. Dr. B?
Yeah, no, the only comment I'm making is you're exactly right. And the big thing is, you don't know what you don't know. And yeah, so I mean that just goes to, we can't relax our guard. it really bothers me to hear folks of my age group that kind of say, well, we got vaccinated, so we're planning a trip next month to see our kids. It's like, no, 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 no. All this means is that if you're in a war and you're in combat, they've now given you a flak jacket. Okay. So I would still not go stand out in front of all the machine guns. I'd still kind of do everything I can keep from to keep from getting infected, getting hurt. So yeah, we don't know. God, we're learning about this disease daily, about these, as Gina says, vascular and long-term neurological ramifications of it. So this is just not something to be trivial to
But
trivialize.
we should be careful, though, not to speculate on things that we don't know about, right? We don't want to fall into the same trap that the anti-vaxxers do, where they make up a
Well,
bunch of
no.
stuff that has no evidence. So,
No, but
maybe it'll do something to their neurovascular system, but I have not seen any evidence that that's the case, and I think it would be a disservice to our viewers to suggest that that is something that is a significant risk. Keep it in back of mind, sure, but it probably would behoove us to keep a level head about things like that.
Listen, I do want to say just quickly, because we do value everyone's time. We're going to go over just a little bit, and I want to thank everyone who's joining us and who'll be watching us later on Facebook and also on YouTube as well. This is a very, very important conversation. Dr. Gina, I don't know if you wanted to say something, then I just have one more question.
no, I'm fine.
Oh.
I mean, I'm just saying, we know
Yeah.
it's a vascular disease. I don't think anybody's speculating. I think that there have been some research that shows that some people have experienced, vascular issues in their brain. But yes, we don't know. That's the problem. We don't know. And this is why when people say, well, they keep changing their minds. No, we're not changing our minds. Scientists are not changing their minds. What they're doing is they're updating their knowledge and making accommodations to when new information comes in.
I have the same concerns you do, Dr. Gina, and I know Dr. B, we've been talking about this since last March. It's going to be almost a year that we've been talking about this. And as a matter of fact, almost exactly a year ago, when Jeff Scott was on our show and we were meeting here at the house, he brought the masks, and we had just heard about COVID and all that kind of stuff. And I remember we watched that show later on, and we were joking, we were calling it the Dos Equis virus and so forth. And then Dr. B came on, and then we went into lockdown. And I look back at that, I'm like, I just can't believe we said those things. But I have those concerns too, because we don't actually know the long-term effects. I mean, we hear people who are suffering from, they call it long haulers, and who are still having symptoms. I have completely, every once in a while I'll have a cough, but there's this burnt smell that I still feel periodically when I wake up in the morning. It's like, it's just a weird smell. I've never lost my taste. I eat like I'm going out of style, and I can taste everything, but there's this burnt smell that I still feel. I was very concerned when I was in isolation about my lungs, because I heard the stories of people having x-rays of their lungs, and then afterwards, and there were still things in their lungs. And so I was really trying to take care of my lungs. I got on the treadmill for the first time on Monday, did well. It'd be interesting when I see my doctor again, if I could get another x-ray to see how my lungs are doing. But I think that's kind of what you're talking about, is because we don't know. And shouldn't we err on the side of let's just be careful? I'd rather us be cautious. I don't know. I have those same concerns. So I can hear.
Well, I can tell you that we've been pretty cautious, and let me just say that everybody's taking risks. So I'm not pointing my fingers at anybody. I do get upset when people go out and they're not wearing their mask properly, but I think everybody's taking risk. Okay, by going to the grocery store, you're taking a risk. And these have to be calculated risk, and you have to say to yourself, we're taking a risk by letting our son, continue to work, 1 or 2 days a week in the kitchen of a restaurant, right? But we felt, my husband and I really weighed the pros and cons, and we felt that this was the best thing for him right now. So the question is, what are you willing to risk, right? And So you're right. We don't know what we don't know. That's the fact. And we're probably going to learn about this. We're going to continue to see and learn about this years down the road, right? I mean, initially everybody thought this is a lung disease, and then we were like, no, this is kind of cardiovascular disease. And now we kind of know that it really affects, blood vessels. So it is more of a it's more of a vascular disease. But again, we still don't know. And my question to everyone, or what I would tell everybody is, think of what you're risking and what you're getting benefit. Is going out to dinner with a group of friends and inside a restaurant worth it? Or is it better to just, is it better just to sit outside your house with another couple, in front of a fire, outdoors? And yes, you're freezing. Yes, you may have a blanket. Yes, you will have a fire pit. But to me, that's worth it, And is there a risk having another couple here with that? Absolutely. We're all outside. Nobody comes in, But that is the risk I'm willing to take. I'm not willing to take the risk of having a Super Bowl party.
You said something that was real interesting, because I've always thought this was so interesting about Charlotte in general. We're, financial capital, one of the financial capitals, there's a huge income inequality here where you have the haves and then, the have-nots, so to speak. And Charlotte, most people who are part of the state able to work at home, that started back in March. And for many companies, the financial industry, I know in this household, they're staying home at least until next fall now, they've announced. And with maybe some options of the summer and so forth, but they pretty much pivoted to that way. So it seems like our professional business world, corporate America, they've already pivoted to, this is the safest way for us to operate. Try to minimize contact. All of the parents are under those, but yet they don't think that's okay for their kids. And so it's like, your work is telling you this is the safest way for us to operate as an organization. But yet some of the parents are saying, but we don't want that for our kids. We want them just to be with each other. So it doesn't, I just found that interesting.
But these are the same people, I think, and some of them are my friends. Many of them are my neighbors, right? These are the same people that say, well, I'm working from home because the company deems it safe, so I'm staying home, and it's nice to be able to work from home. But when I go to the grocery store, what do I have to wear a mask? Or I'm going to go out. So it was, I think it was last weekend or 2 weekends ago, that we had not seen our dear friends for a long time. And we said, let's get together. And we said, let's go out to this restaurant that has outdoor heaters and a patio, South Park, right? We go, there was a 1 hour wait list. The restaurant indoors, we didn't even go inside. We called and said, we're outside. Can you put us on the patio? The restaurant inside was hopping, was people walking around, and we looked outside, and even outside, people were just walking around without masks. And that's when we said, forget it. We're just going back to our house. We're ordering a pizza, and we're just going outside, around the fire. So we didn't stay because it was so. And I think this is what I tell people: if not for you, for your family. If not for your family, for your neighbors. We are a community, and we cannot continue to act in a selfish manner that we just say, well, I have health insurance. I'm in good health. It's not going to affect me. So I get sick. So what? And there are people at the grocery store that have no choice but to go to work. So if you're not doing it to protect yourself, do it to protect them. Exactly, because they have no choice. You may have a choice, they have no choice.
Well, listen, we lost Stephen, in case you didn't realize that. His computer crashed. And so Stephen did say, he texted me and said, thank you everyone for joining us. And we did go over.
I thought he just got mad.
Stephen's got a very dry sense of humor, so he would have shared it in a different way, like,
I know.
everyone knows Stephen. So listen, I want to thank y'all so much, and please come back, if you want to talk about this. I think we're going to be talking about this, at least my feeling from what I'm hearing from this household. Corporate America is being very, very careful. They are pivoting. I don't believe we're going to be over this completely until 2022 summer. I think that's kind of what we're looking at. If we get do things before that, that'd be wonderful. I'd love more, like you said, I'd love to have a Super Bowl party. I mean, that's just what we do here. Chili cooking contest. I'd love to have them, but we just can't right now. I mean, I tell my nieces and nephews who want to see their friends and stuff, and I tell them, just because you can do it doesn't mean you should do it. I mean, that's to me, it's more maturity to have the ability to not do it. And I've said this to people who follow us on the show, and also people who stay at home. I remember in corporate America, I would hear so many of my coworkers telling me, I would kill to spend some time with my family. I would kill to just be alone with my family. And now that you actually can do it, what are we complaining about? I mean, not everyone can do it, but I love the time I've been able to, we've been pivoting. So that's my 2 cents. And anybody, we're going to end the show. I want to thank everyone for joining us. We're going to go around the screen, the Brady Bunch screen. It looks like St. Bernie has agreed with everything we've said. We want to welcome St. Bernie to our show, taking Baby Trump Piñata's place. Dr. B, if you'll tell us where you're going to be. And then also Stephen's joining us again. Dr. Gina, if you will tell us where you're going to be. And then we will also end with Stephen. Any last comments? And so once again, thank you so much for joining us. I hope people who watch this show got some information and get involved in what's going on in your community. So we'll start with Dr. B, Dr. Gina, and then Stephen.
Alarm system is going off right now, so I'm going to defer to someone. This is just a test. It's just a
Okay. All right, Dr. Gina.
So what I will tell people is, again, if you're not for you, do it for your family or do it for your neighbors. And I would ask everybody to please contact the Board of Education and contact, frankly, the governor's office and ask them to have the teachers vaccinated. It is important that the teachers get it. And some may not want to take the vaccine, and that's okay. But we need to make sure that we give them a chance, for the teachers, school staff, bus drivers, whoever's in contact with the kids, they need to have the chance to be vaccinated. We don't pay teachers or school staff enough. We overwork them, and we need to make sure that we advocate for them.
Thank you.
Teacher
Stephen.
appreciation should not just be one week a year when we send them flowers.
Well, sorry guys that I crashed out for a quick second. Leave it to Microsoft to make an operating system that can't just stay on. I was able to catch some of it on my phone, the discussion that I missed out on. So I'll just say this as a piece of another opinion, because why wouldn't I have another opinion? If you go to a public place and there are people gathering and you feel uncomfortable saying, you know what, I'm just going to go home, I'm going to stay home, I'm going to social distance, that's part of personal responsibility, and I truly believe that's an option. I'm a big fan of having as many opportunities as possible for individuals, families, and communities. So as it pertains to schools, when the schools reopen, I would hope that wouldn't take away the options for remote learning or other vectors of education that have been open, right? Just because some kids and some families aren't as afraid and want to go to school and do in-person instruction, that's fine. I wouldn't want to take away from the families who want to do virtual learning or other kinds of educational options. I'm one of those people that I have to work at the grocer. I have to be out rubbing shoulders with people every day to well, not today, but on the days I work, to make money, right? And it is what it is. But we can make personal choices. And I would while I'm not of the paternalistic mindset, being involved in your local community is very important. So yes, reach out to your school board, reach out to your school district, reach out and pay attention to what the governor's office is doing or the county commission. Be in contact with these folks, get your voice heard, whatever your opinion may be, because the communities are the people who live in the community are the ones that know what's best for them, right? So Mecklenburg is different from the other counties in the state, and so what works here is going to be different, and so we all have to come together and figure out what options work best for us. And the people who are in control or in power, they don't know unless they hear from us. So we have to be proactive in letting them know, we want this, we want that, we want options or opportunities, or we want more vaccines for essential workers. And I don't necessarily think government employees should get preferential treatment, but if that's what you believe, then make sure that the people in government know that. And as the vaccines come online, encourage people. Their DHHS has a wonderful website. It's in the chat on the Facebook comments page. It tells you how to go about getting a vaccine as soon as one becomes available in your demographic. So that's a good thing. That's a hopeful note that we have the tools to kick this thing to the curb, as it were.
Well, Stephen, that was our 30-second closing comment, by the way. So
I'm so sorry. I missed out on some commenting time, so I had to get it all in.
I hear you. Listen, we thank everyone who joined us on Coffee and Ponduce today. I want to remind everyone that it takes nothing to double mask. If you would do that, if it's comfortable, please double mask. It is something that, woulda, coulda, shoulda. If we had all just masked up back in April and May, imagine we would be opening schools and things. So,
and if you think double masking is awesome, you should try triple masking or quadruple masking. Good stuff.
All right. So listen, if you can stay on this on Zoom, please stay on so we can do a quick promo. If Dr. B, if Dr. Gina, if you can, I understand that. If you can't, I understand that. But we're going to disconnect from Facebook Live. Once again, I'm Christian Cano with Mama Ruth. Unfortunately, was not able to join us. Barbara had to go with her new phone. And Stephen, thank you so much once again for adding your input. And please, everyone, mask up, protect your neighbors. Do what you need to do so we can reopen safely. I'm really excited for those who know history about the Spanish pandemic. We had the Roaring 20s that occurred after the Spanish pandemic. So if anyone wants to think positive, imagine what our economy is going to be like when we get over this. It's going to be booming, and I'm going to be a flapper. So I just want everyone to know now that I have made that decision. So goodbye, everyone. Thank you for joining us on Coffee and Ponduce. And stay on if you can.
Take pictures when you dress up as a flapper, please.
That's right. Bye, y'all.